Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your girl, Miss Sound Little Cool. I'm coming to you straight out of NYC on this very quiet Tuesday evening. For those of you who are out on the West Coast, Midwest, Southwest, those of you that's out in the North Atlantic, New England, Mid-Atlantic, down south, the dirty, near the Gulf of Mexico, I just want to say hello, peace to you all, and thank you for supporting me and my commentary. So this is some news that I literally just happened upon. I didn't even know this was going on. And I happened upon this because I was listening to a fellow YouTuber's commentary about Chris Cuomo from CNN. So typing up Chris Cuomo being suspended, I happened upon this story that I think is just phenomenal. So many people, I'm sure, know about Josephine Baker, who is the icon. Before Madonna, there was Josephine. So when you see Madonna do things that for shock value, or do things like perform scantily clothed on stage, she wasn't doing anything that was unique. She wasn't the first to do it. She just put a different spin on it. But many of the female entertainers that do things that are provocative, they're all paying homage, whether they're doing it on purpose or without the intent. They're paying homage to Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker was an icon. She was a dancer who then became a jazz performer, who became an actress. And although she was from East St. Louis, she made it big and became a superstar in France. And her story is phenomenal and iconic. And it's just a shame that America never gave her due that she deserved, because she is from America. But France has. So I'm going to read, because I was looking up from CNN. I feel that they give a really great depiction of it. I'll also read from CNN from NBC as well. But this is just it. It says, CNN style, Josephine Baker becomes the first Black woman honored at the Pantheon in Paris. Black American born, a woman, and arguably best known for her exotic dancing, Josephine Baker hardly fits the profile of France's historic heroes. But today, the performer from St. Louis, Missouri, was granted one of France's highest honors, a tomb in the Panthéon in Paris, the country's monument to its heroes. There have been only 80 people granted the honor since the tradition began in Napoleonic times. Baker is the first Black woman honored at the Pantheon, according to the Élysée Palace. She is also only the sixth woman, which includes scientist Marie Curie and politician Simone Veil. Baker, a dancer, singer, and wartime spy, is a household name in France. Her scantily clad dancehall routines, often playing on colonial tropes, are synonymous with the wild Riviera of the 1920s. Although less known in her American homeland, she was proud of her humble roots in St. Louis, and later in life became a fierce advocate for civil rights, speaking at the 1963 March on Washington. On Tuesday afternoon, French President Emmanuel Macron spoke at a ceremony at the Pantheon to mark Baker's interment. Though her body remains buried in Monaco at the request of her family, a coffin was entombed at the site bearing handfuls of dirt from 4 important locations in her life. St. Louis, Paris, Milandes, the site of her chateau home, and Monaco. This is not the first time that the honor has been bestowed this way. According to the Elysée, French resistance fighters Geneviève de Gaulle, Antonios, and Germain Tillon are represented by caskets with earth. The date of her interment also holds significance, marking the anniversary of when she received French citizenship in 1937. Wow, that's like 84 years ago. Macron tweeted a video celebrating Baker's life Tuesday, in which he said she had all the courage, all the boldness. She's quite synthetic of what it means to be French, hailing her fight from universalism, her wartime acts, and her absolute freedom. Macron added in the video that Baker is quite inspiring. The ceremony bore all the hallmarks of French pomp: a military orchestra, a rousing national anthem, a choir of children singing one of Baker's own songs, according to the Elysée. The symbolic tricolor draped coffin was carried by 6 members of France's Air and Space Force, followed by another member of the Air Force carrying the 5 decorations that France bestowed upon Baker during her life. These include the World War II Resistance Medal and the Knight of the Legion of Honor, one of the country's highest awards. When she passed away in 1975, much has been made of the decision by Macron to grant her this honor now. For Macron, the occasion offers a chance to rally France around its pride of those who resisted the Nazi occupation in World War II, as well as addresses a long-standing deficit in the number of women and people of color who rest under the Panthéon dome. As Baker's coffin was brought to the steps of the Pantheon, a recording of her most famous song was played, J'adore amours. I have 2 loves, my country and Paris. Wow, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So also NBC News, they had spoke. And I will just read a little bit of what they said. And according to NBC, it reads, Josephine Baker becomes first Black woman honored at Paris Pantheon. The historic memorial site will pay tribute to the mark Baker and her legacy left on the French and Black communities. Josephine Baker, the legendary performer and entertainer, will be honored Tuesday at the Pantheon in Paris, where she will be the first Black woman to be memorialized, as well as the first U.S.-born person and performing artist to be recognized. Baker, who passed away in 1975, began her career as a jazz performer. When she moved to France in 1925, she continued to showcase her Black heritage through her performances as she became immersed in French culture. As the Second World War gained traction across Europe, Baker, who became a French citizen in 1937, lent her services to the French government, acting as a spy and bringing other counterintelligence officers into her act. According to the French Defense Ministry, her clandestine service continued through the war when she refused to perform for Nazis who occupied France. Constructed in the 18th century, the Pantheon is a symbol for the history of France, holding 72 men and 5 women recognized for their accomplishments by France and its citizens. Following tradition, Baker's symbolic casket will be carried down Paris Rue Soufflot into the monument. The casket contains soil from 4 places she inhabited: St. Louis, Missouri, Paris, Les Milans, in the south of France, and Monaco. French President Emmanuel Macron will speak, and Baker's children will read excerpts from some of her best-known speeches. A video highlighting Baker's life will be shown, and a children's choir will perform. Baker and other Black American artists and intellectuals gravitated to Europe to escape racism in the U.S., especially in the early 20th century. Mabula Soumahoro, an associate professor at the Université de Tours in France, said Black Americans in particular were associated with the power and respect of the U.S. because of its war efforts in France during World War I and World War II. As a result, the French people generally welcomed Black Americans. It's not only about race, said Soumahoro, who focuses on U.S. African American and Africana studies. It's not only about blackness. She was a black American. So that status that she achieved in France was possible and impossible in the United States. But Sumahoro said black inhabitants of French colonies would have never reached that level of success in France. And that is the truth. And I'm going to get to that. Julie Brown, a journalist, gives tourists a historical glimpse into Baker's life through her company, Walking the Spirit Tours, which focuses on exploring the history and culture of black people in Paris. The route following Baker's life includes sites like Chateau de Malines, where Baker raised her children, and the Madeleine Church, the site of her state funeral in 1975. Brown said Baker's black and French identities contributed to her cultural influence and made her a universal figure. She's actually on both sides because the blackness very much is important to the advancement that she wants to make for the black community, Brown said. But on the other side, there is universal side of being an entertainer who has influence in everything she does, like with the army. She embodied, that liberty, the freedom, the quality, and the brotherhood. And she has remained faithful to France. All that she has done, and with French values. Baker's performances had a daring quality, and her style influenced other women, regardless of their race. As a cultural icon, Baker encouraged more women to seek liberation, including sexual freedom. Through her stardom, Baker was often in the presence of many royal figures, including Princess Grace of Monaco. In an NBC News interview, Prince Albert reminisced about Baker's gracious and friendly character, which established her great friendship with her mother. Albert's family helped Baker during times of financial hardship while helping her perform again after a hiatus. Albert watched Baker perform in her later years at a live show in 1974, where he said her beauty and radiance was still there, and it was a delight to be able to witness that. Besides being an artist, an entertainer, and an activist, Baker also engaged in humanitarian efforts. Her 12 adopted children are referred to as the Rainbow Tribe, and they all derive from different nationalities and ethnic groups. 11 of her children are still living. One of them, Aiko Bouillon, who said her mother continuously donated her time, resources, and money to help those in need. She wanted the world to be better, Bouillon said. That was her aim in life. Baker's legacy lives on through those who continue to be inspired by her, like Rosemary Phillips, a Caribbean jazz singer, songwriter, and actor who incorporates Baker's dance routines in her own live performances. Phillips, who lives in France, also owns one of Baker's properties, Le Parc de Josephine Baker, in Castellon-la-Chapelle, which she and her boyfriend plan to restore. During Baker's life, the property hosted concerts and conferences while attracting people from all over the world, from famous musicians to children who were stayed at the park through Baker's scholarship program. Baker's youthful and philanthropic spirit lives on through Phillips' vision, which includes using the property as the cultural place it once was for artists in dance, music, and film. Since she took ownership of the property, Phillips has hosted concerts, masterclasses, and fundraisers for children with disabilities. She also uses it for festivals as she plans to hold art exhibitions. Through her activities, Phillips continues Baker's dream of overlooking people's differences and unifying the world through artistic expression. She was really before her time, Phillips said, so it was a really big project to make the world a better place before leaving it. And that is true. Josephine Baker is an icon. She's an icon. I would say she was one of the first icons in the arts, in performing arts. I would say she was the first. Because what she did was very original. Wearing the banana skirt, dancing topless. She couldn't have done that in the U.S. But in France, it worked because Europe doesn't have the negative images of nudity like the U.S. does. Even though in slavery, it was extremely provocative. And I want to say something, which I believe is very, very important. It's very true that Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, were able to go to France and become successful. That has to do with France's relationship with the U.S. before the war on Iraq. Even though we've never been enemies, our relationship isn't as close as it was, and especially during the Trump era. It really default. It really declined. But pre-Iraq war, the U.S. and France, to me, had like that best friend relationship. You know, if you put France and the U.S. in a buddy movie, they would like save the day together. Because France not only had our back during every single major war the United States was in, but if it wasn't for France supporting us during the Revolutionary War, the United States would not have been able to defeat England, Great Britain. That's very important to know. So France has always welcomed Black Americans simply because of our status as being from the United States. Whereas Black people from other parts of the world, or the globe, I would say, haven't gotten that same treatment. And Algerians, oh my God, that's a whole nother topic to discuss. And they're not even Black people in diaspora, most of them. So I do think that played a part with her status as being a United States American citizen and with that lineage. But also, she was genuinely talented. She was very interesting, very provocative, and she really genuinely loved France. She genuinely gave her life to France. Many people don't know this, but she was a spy during World War II, and she was captured by the Nazis. And when she was captured by them, she got sick and she became ill. What occurred is that when she woke up, they told her what had happened, but they also performed a hysterectomy. That's why she could not have children at all. So it wasn't because of necessarily her being, wanting to have just all these children, adopt them. A lot of that had to do with her not being able to have children because the Nazis removed her womb. And I believe that they did it on purpose through an experiment, because the Nazis were known for their provocative experiments on all types of people, not just white people, but including Black people. The Nazis are demonic and they're devils. And I don't care what nobody say, you cannot sympathize with them and make what they did right and talk about a whole bunch of stuff and pathology. They were just downright evil. But Josephine Baker also was not as welcomed in the United States. And when she returned in 1950 and 1951, there was a man named Walter Winchell who was a racist. I mean, disgusting, despicable racist, who pretty much went for her gut. I mean, he went for the jugular. They never met, but every day when she was in the U.S., he talked bad about her. And there was a club in New York called the Store Club, and it was down in Midtown. And even though in New York, Black people could go to a lot of restaurants, bars, even department stores to shop, museums, the Store Club was a private club, and no Blacks were allowed to attend. My parents knew about it as children growing up in New York. My grandmother knew about it, and most Black people didn't want to go. But Josephine Baker, having the status that she had in France, she wanted to go to the Store Club. And when she entered the club, she saw that being Josephine Baker, an international superstar, didn't work in the United States and even in New York, a northern city. They didn't serve her. She got upset. She basically cursed them out. And Walter Winchell was there. And I believe he was spying on her. And he talked about it so bad. And even the NAACP, believe it or not, they didn't really have her back like they could have. And so she went back to France, and she didn't return until 12 or 13 years later, which was in 1963 during the March on Washington when she spoke. And it's really sad that she was loved everywhere throughout the globe, in every continent, except for the U.S., except for North America, she couldn't get love in her own home country. But yet she loved America. And that's the plight that many of us who are foundational Black Americans, who are ADOS, we go through. We're loved everywhere else except for in the United States. We can go to England. We can go to Italy. When you say, I'm a Black American, oh, you're American. You're American. Oh, my God, I love you all. But in our own home, we don't get that love and respect. And it happens really throughout the diaspora. A person who is from a French-speaking country can get love in every other place, but when they go to France, they may not get that same love, even though France ran and controlled and owned their country for decades or even centuries. And that's the complexities and even a commonality within imperialism, European colonization of Black countries and Black people. So with that being said, I also want to say that I learned about Josephine Baker when I was a kid. I was 7 years old, and I became familiar with her, and I still have the first image I became familiar with her. It's a book of different Black entertainers, and it's like a paper doll, and you could cut it out, which I never did, and you have the images of different ones, and one of them was Josephine Baker, and she has an iconic blue nightgown of herself performing in the 40s. And that was my first image of her. And I even wanted to name myself after her. I mean, I really liked her as a child. I wasn't, when you become an adult, you kind of grow out of the whole, fandom for me. But I didn't know, like, the bad parts of her story until I became a teenager, so forth. And it kind of creeped me out. I'm going to be honest. It kind of creeped me out. But, now that I'm an adult, like a full-fledged adult, her story is very inspiring. I think that the one sad thing is the whole thing with the Nazis did to her when they gave her that hysterectomy while she was unconscious. That was jacked up. But I think everything else, is just really, like, triumphant and so forth. And, yes, she did marry a white man. I believe she married she married a Black man. That's how she got the last name Baker. Then she married two white men. One was I believe he was from Spain. And the other one was Joe Bouillon. That was the one that was really featured in the movie, the Josephine Baker story. So I'm just, am just happy for her legacy, that she's interred in the Pantheon, even though it's not her remains, it's just the dirt, it's symbolic, but it's just iconic, that somebody who came from the slums of St. Louis, and I want to make that correction, it was St. Louis, Missouri, not East St. Louis, to go from St. Louis to France, it's just iconic. And with that being said, it's your girl, Miss Little Cole. I'm signing off. Yes, I was long, as always, but hopefully you enjoyed the commentary. Subscribe to my channel, like this commentary, upload, share, and I will talk to you tomorrow, which will be probably within the next hour. Take care.